So today's word of the day is hyperbole. I guess this is kind of like Sesame Street, right? So today's word of the day, hyperbole. What does that mean? It's an exaggerated statement or claim not meant to be taken literally. You know, folks say, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen, or this is the worst I've ever seen, this is the biggest. That's hyperbole, okay? Exaggerated statements. I'm not one to dabble in hyperbole at all. That's not my thing. Typically, if something is great, cool, it's great. If it's not so great, it's not so great. I'm not gonna put any extra fluff on it. It just is what it is. But allow me to say this: this Syracuse game for our Hurricanes is one of the biggest games that we have had in the last 15 to 20 years. There's all kind of implications to it. All kinds. There's transfer implications. There's recruiting implications. Y'all have heard me say before, I'm not going to do the Hurricanes or back talk anymore because I had to pay for that so much during high school. It's crazy. You have no idea. So I'm not doing this Hurricanes is back talk anymore. But if we are ever going to get back, this season would be a huge part of us getting back. Getting to the tournament, there's implications on that. Getting to the ACC championship, implications on that. This one game impacts so many parts of the Hurricanes getting back that it's obvious that this is one of the biggest games we've had in the last 15 to 20 years. Easy. Um, Here's what we're going to do today. So I watched plenty of Syracuse football games. There were three teams that actually stood out when we were early in this season. Three different teams, almost four, but I'll just say three. You know, at the beginning of the season, you're watching all of these teams in your conference, and you're trying to figure out who's for real, who's not so serious. The three teams that stood out to me was Georgia Tech real early. I was like, they could be good because they just play so weird. They play peekaboo style football where you don't know where the ball is going to go, and then somebody just takes off. Everybody just goes full speed in different directions. You don't know who's got the ball. I call it peekaboo football. So Georgia Tech stood out. SMU also stood out because I thought their offense looked just as good as their defense. And they also played consistent. They didn't have like gimmicks or anything. They just played good football everywhere. SMU stood out to me. Boston College was the other school that almost stood out just because of their quarterback, but I knew Bill O'Brien was going to ruin it. I knew it. So he was the one school that made me go, I'm not too worried about them. Bill O'Brien will figure out a way to lose it, and he did. The other school, though, that stood out early in the season was Syracuse, mainly because I heard the talk about Kyle McCord last year, Ohio State. Heard about him being the reason why they weren't good enough. Then I heard they was trying to transfer to somewhere different. And I'm like, he's no good. Who wants him? Then I actually watched him play. And I was like, this dude is throwing the ball everywhere. Like, their offense looked really impressive to me. Really impressive. So those are the schools that jumped off the screen for me with Syracuse, Georgia Tech, SMU, and then almost Boston College. But Bill O'Brien's there. So it is what it is. What I've done this week is I've watched two games from Syracuse, every play at least twice. I watched the UConn game. Why did I watch that game? Because it was the most recent game that they've played. And then I also watched the game against Pitt. Why did I watch that game? Because anytime you want to know how to beat somebody, you should look at a team who did beat them. You want to look at this. You want to see the team you're playing against. You want to see their worst game because obviously the opposing team figured out how to bring that worst part out of them, right? And you want to just replicate that. So that's why I watched those two games, Syracuse versus UConn, Syracuse versus Pitt. So what I'll do today is I'll go through what I noticed about Syracuse. So at the end of this video, you'll be an expert on Syracuse football, basically. You'll also come away with this video knowing exactly what Pitt did to beat Syracuse, and then you'll know what the Hurricanes have to do to win this game. Lord, please make us win this game. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Syracuse versus UConn. The first thing I noticed about this team is, in all caps, they want to pass the ball. All caps. And if you're watching this video, I'm sure you already know that part, right? Or what are you even doing watching Miami versus Syracuse video clips and whatnot? But that's what they want to do. They want to pass the ball, and it's not just like vertical threat. It's they do something that's a little different than what I've seen before, to be honest with you. They attack the flats like crazy. And if you're not too familiar with what the flats are, it's like the area outside the numbers that go from like 1 yard, that go from like the line of scrimmage up to like 5 to 7 yards. So again, line of scrimmage about 5 or 7 yards from the line of scrimmage, all the way outside the numbers. That's called the flat zone. They want to attack the flat zone almost every play. It looks like that's their first read, which I've never seen a program, NFL, college, I don't care what it is. I've never seen a team focus on the flats on offense as much as I've seen Clemson do that. It's crazy to me. So what they did a lot in both games is they would get the snap. A lot of times Kyle McCord would do a play action, and then he would throw it to a receiver who runs like he's way outside the lines. He runs like a 2 yard up and then runs straight to the sideline. So Kyle McCord gets the snap and throws it to the sideline, and their hope is that the receiver ends up breaking a tackle, and then he gets into open space and he runs for another 15 to 20 yards. That was their game plan for the entire UConn game. That was their game plan for the entire first half of the Pitt game. But I'll talk about what Pitt did to change that in a little bit. Okay? Syracuse, they got a running back named LaQuint Allen who catches the ball out of the backfield. He's built more like a wide receiver, tall, lanky, built more like a receiver than he is a running back. But he can run between the tackles. He's most effectively catching the ball, though. What I thought was most impressive with him is that he seems to have a lot of ball skills similar to Damian Martinez. I saw them on a bunch of different times line him up in the 5 wide scenario. So he wasn't lined up in the backfield. He was lined up as a receiver on multiple plays. The amount of times that I saw this team run a 5 wide formation was kind of shocking too. They did 5 wide on a bunch of plays. No running back, no protection back there. Just 5 people blocking up front and 5 receivers lined up and going deep routes and all that stuff. Another thing that Syracuse seemed to want to do was rub routes. Not a whole lot of pick and rub routes, but I did see a couple of those. I foresee the Hurricanes. I foresee like at least one play in this game where they do some type of rub route or a pick route, whatever you want to call it, and it goes for a real big play. And the only thing that we can rely on is if the referee is going to call that offensive pass interference or if he's going to let it go. But I do see us getting beat at least one time on a real big play from a rub route or a pick route because they did so many of those. And a lot of times it just comes down to judgment call and referee. Did he think that the guy who set the pick, did he run his route or did he actually run right into the corner? I think it's going to come down to one of those plays. So we'll see. Just if that does happen, come back and holler at me. I'll be like Nostradamus, I guess, whatever. All right, so the next thing that I noticed about Syracuse watching this UConn game, Kyle McCord will give you at least 1 or 2 passes per half. You just have to be opportunistic enough to come down with it. They're going to score some points. It's going to happen. We just have to make sure whenever we do have the opportunity on a tip ball that goes way up in the air, or if he misreads, he thinking it's a man and he doesn't see a zone sitter just right in there in the middle, he throws him to his chest. That's going to happen at least once, probably twice each half. We have to be opportunistic enough to catch it. UConn dropped 2 passes in the first half where it literally hit him right between his numbers and his chin, like right here. Just missed it both times. One time the corner undercut the route, but then the other time, McCord just did not see the guy, and he threw it straight down the middle of the field, into the end zone, and the safety was just sitting there and missed it. So we have got to come away with those. We have to this week. Give me 1 second, take a sip of this water. Okay, the next thing I noticed, Kyle McCord, I wouldn't say he's like a top 5 quarterback. I'm not going to gas him up like that. I'm not going to do this. But I will say His pocket presence was really surprising to me. I did not think that he was as mobile as he is, and I didn't think he'd be able to move around the pocket with his eyes down the field like he did against UConn and against Pitt from the second half. I thought that was pretty impressive. The next thing was Syracuse. They are super aggressive in every way that you could think of. They're like the complete opposite of what we saw from Wake Forest. No shade against Wake Forest, but they seemed like they didn't want to push the ball down the field to save their grandma's life. They just didn't want to do any of that. They didn't want any parts of being aggressive. They just wanted to hand the ball off on 3rd and 11 and just live with punting the ball away. Syracuse is the opposite. They run just about every style on offense that you could think of, whether it's power I or it's wildcat. I saw them run just about every formation you could think of. I saw even on one play, they had one guy act like he was running off of the field for a substitution. Then he stopped in front of the coach and was acting like he was talking to the coach on the sideline, but the player was still on the field. Then Syracuse snapped the ball, and the player took off running down the field and scored a touchdown. It got called back. It was a penalty that I didn't know existed. But that's how creative and how aggressive this team is. They'll go for it on 4th down when they need to. And then on a 3rd and 12, 3rd and 14, they're not going to be doing draw plays. They're going to be trying to get a 1st down. They're aggressive the entire game. I did have a little concern because Hurricanes struggle with peekaboo football, and I've explained what that is. And with Syracuse, I saw them do wildcat multiple times. I saw them have the receiver running this way for that fake handoff. I saw him actually hand the ball off a couple of times. And I'm like, if they really do exert that this week, that could be a problem for our Hurricanes. So that concerned me a little bit. Talk a little bit about their defense. There was a 4th and 1 against UConn, and they ended up scoring like a 50-yard touchdown. It reminded me of our Hurricanes between weeks like 5 and 9, somewhere in there, where it seemed like every short yardage down, we were just completely selling everything out. Like 5 on the line, 5 linebackers, and then a safety around the edge trying to come around and get a stop. And then if the guy breaks one tackle and gets through the first wave, there is no second wave, and the result is either stopping them for a loss or a touchdown. And that is what Syracuse did on multiple times this game. It was just complete sellouts on the short gains. Like the 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s, Syracuse was selling out. It's like, we're either going to stop you back there or you're going to go ahead and get a 60-yard touchdown. We selling out. So saw that a couple times, which I think is a positive thing for us as long as we don't get too cute. And I also think that could be a really big opportunity for somebody like Jordan Lyle, who's got big play potential and can score from anywhere on the field. All right. Next thing I noticed, play action. I mentioned this earlier. They ran this play probably 15 or 20 times. McCord gets the snap out of the shotgun, fakes the handoff, and he throws it to that flat or that flat. He just catches it, boom, and throws it. I saw them do that at least 15 or 20 times. And then eventually what they're hoping that you do is they're hoping that you bite up and then they play action or they pump fake you and then throw it deep for a touchdown. They did that once or twice that game. So they're trying to get you to bite up because they're playing in those flats so much. And as soon as one of your safeties bite up too much, or as soon as one of your corners jump on one of those routes trying to intercept the screen, they take it a pump fake for a touchdown sluggo. So saw that happen a few different times. The defense for Syracuse ran a bunch of zone. It looked like it was cover 3 almost the entire game. I would say they probably ran zone like 85% of the time. And what does that scream at me? That screams Xavier Restrepo should clean up in this game. He should have probably, and it's not like these are tight windows. These are like big, huge windows I'm looking at. So Xavier Restrepo should have probably 15 targets and might end this game with 10 to 12 catches. Do not be surprised if that happens. I'm telling you right now, do not be surprised because they had wide open holes all over that field. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Um, there's a time where, like, I'm watching this game and I'm like, well, what do you want to do against Syracuse? Like, how do you get them out of this throw it to the flat every play mindset? What do you want to do to them? And then what I saw UConn do a couple of times, and it worked both times, and they just didn't go back to it for some reason, is they showed blitz, and they didn't just bring 5 people. They brought 6 people 2 different times. And it wasn't like a delayed blitz. They didn't do any kind of stunts. It wasn't anything cute. They showed 6 people up on the line. Kyle McCord looked at this guy, looked at that guy, didn't check, didn't say kill or anything like that. He just took the ball, and the guys were in the backfield on top of him before he could do anything. And it happened both times on 3rd and long. So made me wonder, why didn't they go back to that? I don't know. But the pressure on that, not the pressure didn't surprise me. The fact that McCord didn't do any kind of check or any kind of, like a quick out router. He didn't do any of that stuff. He just was like, yep, I see that y'all have 6 up here. We only have 5 blocking. We're going to go what we got and snap the ball. I thought that was kind of weird. Makes me wonder if we can exploit that in one way or another. The Syracuse pass rush looked I don't know about the stats. I don't know about, forgive me for that, I guess, but I did not look up what their stats look like as far as their pass rush. I really don't care. I like to just look at what I see on the film, and what I saw is that their pass rush looked almost non-existent. They hardly ever blitzed. Most of the time they rushed 4 people, and those 4 folks did not get much penetration. The UConn quarterback wasn't very good, and the receivers didn't seem very good either. It looked like he had open receivers all over the place in those holes in that zone, and he just couldn't find them. I talked about how Syracuse has 5 wide a lot on offense. Talked about how they're aggressive and tricky almost the entire time. They fake the sub and they fake the punt. The Hurricanes cornerbacks will be challenged the entire game, from the start of the game all the way to the end. And I pray that they're ready for it, because they will be challenged. I talk about how they attack the flats almost every play, but they keep you honest by throwing the ball deep almost any time you have one-on-one coverage on the outside. And I just kept seeing that. I think I watched Kyle McCord in that UConn game throw it 15 to 20 yards down the field. He probably did that maybe 8 times in the game, which maybe that doesn't seem like a whole lot to you, but if you throw the ball down the field 15 to 20 yards that many times, that's going to make the offense a little concerned, or make the defense a little concerned, I'm sorry. And it wasn't just like these guys were open. It was just like, hey, I see one-on-one. I'm just going to do a jump ball real quick and see if he can win this competition. Anytime there was a receiver, not anytime, so many times, the percentage was so high, when there was a corner lined up with the receiver on the outside and that receiver ran deep and there was nobody over the top, McCord just throws it up and out just to see if his receiver can beat him or not. So these corners are going to be tested. And we can talk about later on we'll talk about what I think, or what I'm praying that these Hurricanes defensive coordinators and coaches and corner, all that stuff, I'm praying what they do. Talk about that later on. The next thing was nothing cute. So what I saw Syracuse do, I don't think Syracuse, let me slow down a little bit. I don't want to put a bunch of yeast on Syracuse. I don't want to make them sound like Ohio State. But their offense is top-notch, I'm telling you. Their defense is not very good. Offense is pretty good. And they take advantage of everything that they see. So when I say nothing cute, what I saw was there was a Kyle McCord in the backfield. He had a running back next to him. The linebacker that's lined up and supposed to be guarding this running back started real deep. And then he started walking up and walking up and walking up. And Kyle McCord looked right at him. And when he saw the linebacker walking up almost to the line, snapped the ball real quick. And as soon as McCord got the ball, he looked right at his running back, who did a wheel route around the linebacker, ended up throwing and getting about 30 yards on that play. So when I say nothing cute, all of that fake blitz showing and stunts and all, like, let's just cut that out. because all it's going to do is leave somebody wide open, and they're going to take advantage of it. So let's not do any of that, okay? Now let's talk about what Pitt did, because Pitt just annihilated them. I'm going to see what the score was in that game, because it was crazy when I watched it. I remember watching it live, actually, and thinking, what the heck is going on with Syracuse? The score was 41-13, and it got out of hand super quick. What Pitt did is they pressed everything on the outside. Their corners had press coverage entire game. They did not let so, most of the time you don't want the receiver to cross your face and go into the interior of the defense. You don't want them to go to the middle of the field. Pitt was actually keeping them from getting to the middle of the field, so they were shading on the inside, expecting them to go out. And when they would go out, they would undercut it and get interceptions. Kyle McCord threw multiple interceptions that game. I think he actually threw 2 or 3 interceptions in the first half. One was a pick six. No, 2 pick sixes, actually. So he had a horrible game that week. Let me see. He had 5 interceptions. Again, he wanted to go to the flat almost every play. So Pitt said, okay, we know he wants to go to the flat. Let's jam these receivers on the outside, have help over the back. So if these corners do get beat on a quick miss jam, then we've got help over the top, and we're fine there. So we're going to jam you, not going to let you get inside. I know you want to go outside, so when you do go outside, I'm just going to undercut the route and intercept it. And it happened over and over and over and over. It was 5 interceptions, y'all. Crazy work, right? 5 interceptions in one game is crazy work, especially whenever he came into that game only having, I think, 2 interceptions on the whole season. So let's go to the next thing that I saw and noticed that Pitt was doing. They had a lot of different pressures early in the game. So they started off by doing what I love. Y'all probably heard me say it till I'm blue in the face. Base aligned everything. If there's 3 receivers over here, 3 corners over here. If they're tight end and a receiver over here, then we put a linebacker over this tight end and a corner over that receiver. And they would just blitz. Like this random play they would show, they would have these 4 guys on the line rush, and they would blitz this linebacker. The next play, they would have these 4 line rush, and they would blitz this linebacker and this corner. And Kyle McCord was basically playing guess the entire game. It looked almost the exact same before every play, but he didn't know which guy was going to blitz. And I'm like, that's simple, but it's crazy strategic at the exact same time. It looks the same where we're base aligned on everything. We're press coverage on everything. This play, this corner's going to blitz. Next play, that linebacker might blitz. You don't know where it's coming from. And then, since they were getting pressure on him from doing that, eventually they started mixing stuff up and getting cute, and he didn't know what was happening. They started putting 6 or 7 people in the box, acting like they were going to blitz. Then 5 of them would blitz, 2 would back out and play a zone in the middle of the field, and McCord threw a pick 6 to the guy. It was perfectly drawn up. So let's not get too cute, but we got to figure out a way to get some pressure on this dude without doing all of the stunts and all of the blitz this safety and rotate that corner over here, then this safety. Like, let's not do all of that. If we're going to get pressure on him, let's rush 4 and then have 1 or 2 extra guys from the coverage rush on in there, but let's not overdo it too much or we're going to get burnt. I'm telling you. Starting off, the thing that I wrote out when I was watching Pitt, like in the first quarter, is they blitzed when they said they were going to blitz, and they covered when they said they were going to cover. And it had Kyle McCord so confused. Like, when I say they covered when they said they were going to cover, that means if they had, like, let's say if it was 3rd and 13, they would rush 4 people, and then they would have, like, 5 people standing at the sticks, just standing at the sticks. Like, yeah, I'm not blitzing this play. I'm standing at the sticks because I know you have to pass it. I'm not trying to intimidate you. I just want to get an interception here. Like, that's what they were doing on, like, it was so simple, but it makes total sense. That's the game plan that we got to go with here. Let's get some early pressure, confuse them, blitz here and there. on those definite passing downs, just play the coverage, man. Like, let's rush 4, potentially 5, and play the coverage. We'll be just fine. So we've heard most of this stuff, right? So we've heard what Pitt did. We've heard what UConn did. Now let's just talk about what the Hurricanes have to do in this game. Got to play tight on the edges with help over the top. If that does not happen, the Canes will not win this game. They got to play tight coverage on the outside, guarding the flats, expecting those flat routes, but then having the safeties in the back waiting on that pump fake deep ball. It's going to happen at least twice. They're going to try it. Got to baseline everything and surprise with the blitz. We don't know who's going to blitz. It's just going to be Maui Noah this time. It might be the Basaint next time. Might be both of them the time after that. You don't know. But just keep him off balance with baseline and a surprise blitz every play. That's all you got to do. Next thing, negative plays will be key, but they will not be decisive in this game. When you play against a team like Wake Forest who's not aggressive, the main thing you want to do is have them get behind the chains. You want to have them get an incompletion You want to have them get an incompletion on first down so it becomes 2nd and 10. If you get a team like Wake Forest in 2nd and 10, the odds of them getting that first down go from 60% to 20%. That's what Wake Forest is because they're not aggressive. But when you play against a team like Syracuse, they have the opportunity to get 10 yards on every single play. So that's why when I say negative plays will be key but not decisive, 3rd and 10 is not going to bother them nearly as much as it bothered Wake Forest. 3rd and 10, Wake Forest was waving flags and handing the ball off. 3rd and 10 for Syracuse, they're going to be saying, all right, let's get 5 wide out there and let's see if we can get 20 yards off of this one. So got to keep that in mind. The next thing, don't bite on the pump fake. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I say don't bite on the pump fake. I think we actually should be playing I think we should be playing aggressive. So I do think that our corners are going to bite on the pump fake. So the only way that we can save that is by having safeties over the top. We've got to have safeties over the top. Because if we are going to be aggressive and get 1 or 2 pick sixes in this game, which I'm telling you is extremely possible, teams that throw in the flat, they are susceptible to giving up pick sixes all day, every day. So if we're going to play opportunistic football where we're giving points up, but we have the opportunities to steal points with pick sixes, that means eventually those pump fakes, they're going to go deep. And when those do go deep, we've got to have a safety or 2 over the top protecting that. All right, the next thing is people think that it's a given that the offense must show up, but y'all, the offense has got to show up. We got to score points. I know that y'all say Syracuse has no defense and the Hurricanes have the best offense in the country, which may be true, but they got to put some points on the board. All right, that's all that I got for you today. I appreciate you watching the video as always. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I truly appreciate that. So take care. God bless.